freedom does not begin when you have everything. It begins when you no longer need anything. Most people are trapped, not by walls, but by their own desires. They chase approval, validation, comfort, and call it living. But a man who wants nothing cannot be bought, cannot be broken. Understand this: the moment you stop craving, your energy changes. The noise inside you begins to fade. You see the world clearly, not as you wish it to be, but as it is. And in that stillness, you become unshakable. Desire blinds the warrior. It makes him hurry, it makes him fear loss, it makes him forget who he is. But the one who walks with no want moves like water, patient, powerful, unstoppable. Bruce Lee once said, "Sadis, it is not daily increase, but daily decrease. Hack away the unessential. When you remove the need to have, you discover the strength to be. So empty your cup. Let go of what you think you must have. Let the world come and go without disturbing your balance. Because when you want nothing, your mind is free. And when your mind is free, you fear nothing." A noisy mind is a prison built from its own echoes. It reacts to every sound, every doubt, every shadow that moves. The more it listens to confusion, the tighter the walls close in. A quiet mind, however, does not fight the noise. It simply stops feeding it. Silence becomes its weapon. Stillness becomes its escape. In calmness, the chains begin to loosen. So most people mistake motion for progress. They swing wildly, thinking noise means life. But movement without awareness is only chaos disguised as purpose. When the mind is quiet, every gesture has direction, every breath has weight. To act from silence is to act with perfect timing. That is true strength, the strike that needs no wind-up. The quiet mind is not empty, it is focused. It holds space for everything without being owned by anything. It feels fear but does not become it. It notices anger but does not speak through it. In stillness, emotion becomes information, not identity. This is how clarity sharpens the warrior's blade. When you no longer argue with life, you begin to move with it. Resistance is the noise of attachment. Acceptance is the rhythm of wisdom. A quiet mind listens to the flow and joins it. Instead of pushing against it, the current carries it farther than effort ever could. Freedom is found in surrender, not in struggle. To quiet the mind, you must first face it. Sit with the storm until you can hear the space between thunder. Observe each thought arrive and leave like a wave returning to the sea. Do not chase the waves, become the ocean. The quiet mind does not need control. It simply understands that everything passes. Fear feeds on noise. It thrives on what if, and maybe. When the mind grows still, fear starves. It searches for something to hold on to, but finds nothing. That emptiness is your victory. For in that silence, courage rises naturally, not as defiance, but as presence. A quiet mind sees opportunity where a restless mind sees threat. It reacts slower, but moves faster, because there is no hesitation. Like water around a rock, it finds its path without force. Every decision comes from understanding, not panic. That is how true precision is born, not from speed, but from stillness. Noise is the habit of an undisciplined life. We fill our days so we can avoid ourselves. The quiet mind has nothing to escape from. It stands face to face with truth, even when truth is uncomfortable. In that confrontation, the false begins to fall away, leaving only what is real, awareness without distortion. The quiet mind cannot be manipulated. Words meant to provoke find no echo inside it. Insults collapse in the void of indifference. Praise does not inflate it, and criticism does not wound it, because it listens but it does not absorb. In that neutrality lies unshakable power. To cultivate quiet is to refine energy. Every thought is a vibration. The quiet mind channels it like a blade cutting through fog. It wastes nothing. It speaks less, moves less, but achieves more. Its strength is invisible, yet undeniable. The world bends around such focus. People think freedom is external. Money, control, influence. But the quiet mind knows freedom begins within. A restless mind can have everything and still feel poor. A silent mind can have nothing and still feel whole. Wealth measured in peace never loses its value. Training the body is easy. Training the mind is the real battle. Muscles obey repetition, thoughts resist it. The quiet mind is forged by awareness, breath by breath. Each inhale collects chaos. Each exhale releases it. Through discipline, stillness becomes your natural state, not a forced one. The quiet mind is not weak. It is alert. It senses before it reacts. It waits before it strikes. When conflict comes, it does not panic. It adjusts. It wins not through domination, but through timing and balance. The enemy falls to his own noise. A quiet mind transforms pain into understanding. It asks not why me, but what is this teaching me? Every wound becomes a window, every failure a doorway. The more silent you become, the louder truth begins to speak. Wisdom does not shout, it whispers. When the mind is quiet, every chain, fear, desire, doubt, ego begins to dissolve. You see that you were never trapped. You were only distracted. Freedom was never outside you. It was waiting in the space between your thoughts. Master that space, and nothing can hold you again. Craving is the quiet surrender of your strength. When you crave, you give the world the key to your peace. Every desire becomes a leash that pulls you where it wants. You stop moving by choice and start reacting by impulse. The mind that depends on something outside of itself can never rest. True power is lost not in failure, but in need. Power is not in possession, it is in balance. The moment you want something too much, it begins to own you. The mind bends toward what it longs for, forgetting the strength that exists in contentment. When you want less, your energy gathers within. When you want more, it scatters. Power is a current. It flows to those who stand still long enough to hold it. Craving clouds vision. It makes the simple seem incomplete, and the complete seem dull. The man who craves success cannot see the peace he already has. The man who craves approval forgets his own reflection. The more you chase, the further peace retreats. Only when you stop reaching does the path become clear again. Every craving begins with a story. When I have this, I will be enough. But that story has no end. The mind invents a new desire before the last one is satisfied. It lives in a loop of almost. Power comes from breaking that loop, from saying what I have is already within me. When you stop needing, you start becoming. Craving turns strength into dependence. It makes you a beggar for what you could create. You start to seek permission from the world to feel complete. The truth is, no one can give you what you are missing, because nothing is missing. The hunger is only noise, and silence is the cure. When you crave, your focus narrows. You stop seeing the whole picture. The mind becomes like a clenched fist, tight, rigid, unable to receive. Let go and the hand opens again. When you loosen your grip on outcomes, life begins to place the right things gently in your palm. Craving makes you forget timing. It rushes you into what was meant to unfold slowly. The impatient mind wants everything now, and that desperation kills mastery. Power is rhythm. It moves with precision, not panic. The one who can wait is already in control. The man who craves approval becomes a shadow of others' opinions. The man who seeks constant victory becomes trapped in fear of loss. But the one who moves without craving moves freely. He does not fight to prove himself. He simply acts from inner stillness. His presence becomes his power. Craving is the noise of insecurity. It tells you that something outside must complete what's inside, but you are already whole. The mind that knows this stands tall even in emptiness. To crave nothing is not to lack ambition. It is to move from purpose, not hunger. When you lose craving, you gain direction. Every step becomes deliberate. Your energy no longer leaks through desire. You stop chasing many things and start mastering one. Focus born from peace is sharper than focus born from want. One is natural, the other desperate. The more you crave, the weaker you appear. Not because craving is wrong, but because it confesses that you are not enough yet. The strong remain silent in their pursuit. They move with calm certainty, not begging for the result, but becoming the reason for it. When you stop asking, life starts answering. Craving turns love into control, passion into obsession, and ambition into anxiety. Letting go does not mean losing drive. It means removing the poison from it. When your actions are clean of attachment, everything you touch becomes effortless. This is the power of clarity, doing without needing. The mind that craves cannot listen. It hears only the echo of what it wants. But when the noise fades, awareness returns. You begin to notice the quiet beauty in ordinary things. The small, the still, the unnoticed. These are where strength hides. Power grows in the soil of gratitude, not in the chase for more. You lose power the moment you crave, because craving divides you. One part of you wants, the other fears. The split weakens your core. When you are united within, mind, body, and purpose aligned, you need nothing to feel whole. That is when your energy becomes unstoppable. Let go of craving, and you reclaim command. The world bends to those who do not beg from it. Move without need, love without fear, act without demand. Power flows through the one who stands silent before desire and smiles. To crave nothing is not to give up. It is to rise beyond what can be taken. The world will always be louder than your heart. It rushes, demands, and constantly tempts you to react. But strength is not in answering every noise. It is in observing without being shaken. When everything pulls at you, stand still. When the storm rises, breathe slower. The still tree bends, but it does not break. In calmness, you begin to rule what others chase. The world moves in waves: emotion, opinion, distraction. People become tides, rising and crashing without direction. If you chase every wave, you drown in noise. The one who stays unmoved learns to float above the surface. Stillness is not absence of life. It is mastery of rhythm. When you no longer move to every current, the ocean becomes yours to navigate. To stay unmoved is not to resist. It is to align. A river does not fight the mountain. It finds its path through patience. So too must you learn to move through life without letting life move through you. Let events pass like clouds across the sky. Observe, but do not attach. Reaction is weakness disguised as participation. The mind that is unmoved is unbreakable. It watches chaos but does not become. It listens to insult but does not carry it. It sees temptation but does not kneel to it. True control is invisible. It is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet authority. The man who stays still when the world shakes commands respect without asking for it. Most people lose peace because they try to manage everything outside of them. But the outside world was never meant to obey you. Control your breath, your thoughts, your focus. That is the true kingdom. When the inner world is still, the outer world cannot disturb it. Calm is not inaction, it is precision without panic. Let the world speak, shout, and argue. You do not have to join its noise to prove your strength. A tiger does not roar at every sound in the forest. It moves when necessary, silent and sure. Staying unmoved is not weakness. It is the highest form of discipline. It means you have nothing to prove and everything to understand. When you stay unmoved, time slows down. You begin to notice what others miss. The pauses between actions, the signals before chaos. This awareness gives birth to foresight. You no longer guess. You sense every calm second becomes an advantage, every silence a weapon sharper than words. People around you will rush, compete, and exhaust themselves. They will mistake motion for meaning. You will move less but achieve more. You will act from clarity, not from fear. The world spins endlessly, but your mind remains the axis, centered, unshaken, complete. This is how the still become unstoppable. To remain unmoved is to trust yourself deeply. Trust that what is meant for you cannot be stolen, and what passes you by was never yours to hold. When you believe this, the need to chase fades. Peace replaces panic. What is yours flows naturally toward you because you are no longer blocking it with desperation. The unmoved mind does not ignore emotion, it understands it. It feels anger, yet chooses patience. It feels pain, yet remains graceful. It feels temptation, yet walks with purpose. Control does not mean suppression. It means direction. You become the master of energy, not its victim. When you stay unmoved, you become like water in its purest state, reflecting everything, absorbing nothing. Water mirrors the mountain, but is not bound to it. It carries what it must, releases what it cannot. Such is the way of the free mind, flowing through change, untouched by it. Noise will always exist. It will disguise itself as urgency, as importance, as truth. But when you see through the disguise, the noise loses its grip. The unmoved see noise as movement without meaning, busy hands building nothing. Focus only on what adds depth to your peace. Everything else dissolves. The world tests the unmoved with distraction. It throws envy, anger, and chaos to see if you react. But if you stay still, the storm burns itself out. You become the calm at its center. What was meant to shake you becomes your training. Stillness becomes your shield, and patience your greatest weapon. To stay unmoved is not to isolate yourself from life. It is to engage it fully yet remain whole. You walk through chaos, but chaos does not walk through you. You touch the world without letting it leave fingerprints on your soul. Such detachment is not coldness. It is freedom in its purest form. And when the world keeps spinning, chasing its own tail, you will stand firm, quiet, aware, free. You will realize power was never about control. It was about clarity. You are the stillness that guides movement, the silence that carries sound. Let the world move. Your peace is the proof that you've mastered it. The endless chase for what you think you need keeps your heart restless. Need is a whisper that becomes a roar the moment you start listening to it. It tells you you're not enough yet, that something is missing, that peace comes later. But peace never arrives through demand. It appears only when you stop asking for more. When the need dissolves, the noise disappears, and what remains is stillness. Every need creates tension between you and life. You pull at it, and it pulls back. The harder you grip, the more it resists. When you finally release, balance returns. That release is not weakness. It is wisdom. A river does not demand the mountain to move. It simply flows around it. To live without need is to walk without weight. The mind unburdened by craving becomes light, sharp, and clear. You start to notice how simple life becomes when you stop trying to possess it. Things lose their power over you because you no longer believe they complete you. Peace is not in ownership, it is in understanding. Need disguises itself as purpose. It pretends to motivate you but quietly enslaves you. The man who needs victory fears loss. The one who simply acts wins naturally. Action without need is freedom. It's movement without desperation. Like a dancer who forgets the audience, you move purely for the love of movement itself. Peace begins when you no longer argue with the present moment. Need is born from resistance, from wanting life to be different than it is. But peace grows in acceptance. The tree does not fight the wind, it bends and continues living. Be like that tree, flexible, patient, untouched by outcome. Most people spend their lives filling a cup with holes. Every new desire leaks through the bottom, leaving them thirsty again. When you stop pouring and start repairing, you discover fulfillment was never about adding more. It was about closing the holes. The quiet mind knows less is completion. The moment you think, I need this to be happy, you give that thing control over you. Your joy becomes conditional, fragile, borrowed. True happiness does not come from what you hold, it comes from what you release. Peace begins where dependency ends and self-sufficiency blooms. To let go of need is to meet yourself without disguise. When the noise fades, you see who you really are. Not a collection of wants, but awareness itself. That realization cannot be taught or borrowed. It must be experienced in silence, where thought loses its authority. When you remove the need for approval, you begin to speak truthfully. When you remove the need for perfection, you begin to grow. When you remove the need for control, you begin to see everything you lose from letting go returns as strength. What remains is simple and real, the self that stands unshaken. Peace begins when you stop chasing meaning in everything. You don't have to explain every pain or justify every event. Let life be as it is, mysterious, imperfect, and temporary. The need to understand everything only creates confusion. Sometimes clarity is born from not knowing. Need feeds comparison. It tells you someone else has more, does more, lives better, but peace does not compete. The flower never compares its bloom to the tree. It simply grows in its own rhythm. When you stop measuring your worth by others, you begin to live in alignment with yourself. The quietest people are often the freest, because they want nothing from you. Their strength lies in independence, not arrogance, but calm self-containment. When you want less from others, you expect less disappointment. That is where kindness grows, in freedom, not need. When you no longer need to prove yourself, confidence becomes natural. You stop performing for the world and start existing within it. Real strength is silent, not hidden, but unforced. You no longer need to show power because you have become power itself. Need turns love into possession. It replaces care with control and connection with fear. To love without need is to love freely, without expecting return, without demanding recognition. That kind of love heals rather than binds. It grows in silence and endures without condition. The mind addicted to needing never rests. It plans, calculates, and anticipates, always waiting for the next thing. Such a mind never truly arrives anywhere. Peace is presence, not reaching, not recalling, but being. When you are fully here, need has no space to exist. When you stop needing to win, you start to learn. Defeat becomes teacher, silence becomes guide. The ego resists this truth because it feeds on needing to be more. But mastery begins in humility. The still water reflects clearly only when it stops moving. There is a difference between desire and attachment. Desire can inspire, but attachment suffocates. When your identity fuses with what you want, you become fragile. But when you act without clinging, strength returns. You no longer depend on outcome to validate effort. Letting go of need does not mean giving up ambition. It means working without fear, striving without panic. The warrior trains not because he needs victory, but because he honors the discipline. The process itself becomes reward. Need loses its grip when purpose replaces greed. When you have peace, you don't chase moments, you create them. You stop running after calmness because calmness begins to follow you. Every step you take without demand plants the seed of inner stability. In stillness, power breathes again. You are not what you want, you are what remains when wanting ends. This truth cannot be understood through intellect, only through experience. Sit in stillness long enough, and you'll see peace was never gone, only hidden behind the noise of need. The man who no longer needs anything is the hardest to control. He cannot be manipulated with promises or threats. His peace makes him untouchable. The world may tempt him with gold or glory, but he smiles, knowing those are just costumes worn by emptiness. When you act without need, your movements become precise and effortless. You stop forcing outcomes and start flowing with intelligence. Life begins to respond differently to you, not because it changed, but because you did. The calm mind directs reality instead of chasing it. Peace is the natural state of a heart that has stopped bargaining with the universe. When you no longer ask, why me, or when will I have, you find you already have enough. Enough breath, enough space, enough time. Gratitude replaces desire. and serenity replaces struggle. Letting go of need is the final discipline. It requires courage to face the emptiness you once feared. But that emptiness is not void, it is freedom. You realize that nothing external can make you whole because you were never broken. The world loses power over you the moment you stop asking it to complete you. And in that silence, peace arrives, not as something achieved, but as something uncovered. It fills the space that need once occupied, quiet and eternal. You begin to live not through grasping, but through being. That is where all true freedom begins, where need ends. The game of life begins to shift the moment you stop playing for approval. As long as you seek validation, the world holds the strings to your peace. Detachment cuts those strings. You no longer react to noise, you observe it. You see every move clearly because you are no longer emotionally tied to the outcome. When the mind lets go, the vision sharpens. Detachment is not withdrawal, it is mastery. It is the art of standing inside the fire without being burned. You participate in the world, but you are not consumed by it. When you detach, emotion no longer dictates action, awareness does. Power flows where control begins, and control begins where attachment ends. The attached mind always trembles, afraid to lose what it holds. Fear of loss is the silent enemy of peace. Detachment frees you from that fear by removing the illusion of possession. You own nothing, not success, not praise, not even identity. The less you cling to, the less the world can take. To detach is to regain command of your energy. When you care too much about results, your strength leaks into anxiety. But when you let go, the same energy becomes clarity. The calm fighter sees openings that the desperate one misses. Detachment transforms pressure into presence. That is when the game changes. Attachment builds illusions of control. You believe that holding tighter will secure the outcome. Yet the tighter you grip, the more it slips. Detachment teaches you to open your hand and trust the process. Control is never achieved through force, it is achieved through flow. Like water, you move freely when you stop resisting. You cannot master life if you are ruled by it. Attachment ties you to every emotion, every success, every failure. Detachment cuts those threads. You stop being a puppet to your moods. When you rise above reaction, every challenge becomes a mirror, not a trap. You stop fighting the reflection and start understanding it. The detached warrior does not fight every battle he chooses. He wastes no energy defending ego or seeking revenge. Detachment gives him perspective. It makes him selective. He does not react to provocation because he knows silence destroys more noise than argument ever could. When you detach, you begin to see how fragile most power truly is. Titles, wealth, and opinions lose their shine. The things others chase endlessly appear small in the distance. You stop running the race because you realize the finish line moves every day. The real victory was never outside you. Attachment makes you predictable. Detachment makes you dangerous. Those who can be provoked are easily controlled. But the one who is detached from ego cannot be manipulated. You cannot threaten what no longer fears loss. You cannot tempt what no longer seeks reward. That is unshakable strength. The mind learns detachment through observation. Watch your thoughts come and go like clouds. Notice how each carries emotion, anger, fear, desire. Yet none stay forever. You are not the clouds, you are the sky that holds them. Detachment sharpens focus. When you stop obsessing over the result, your energy returns to the task. The athlete who detaches from winning plays with flow. The artist who detaches from praise creates from truth. When action becomes pure, excellence follows naturally, not through pressure, but through peace. When you detach, relationships transform. You stop demanding love and start sharing it. You stop expecting understanding and start offering it. Attachment creates ownership. Detachment creates harmony. You love freely because you no longer need to control how love is returned. That is emotional mastery. The ego hates detachment because it thrives on identity, the need to be right, to be admired, to be admired, to be superior. When you detach, the ego loses its stage. You stop performing and start existing. Your silence becomes more powerful than your explanation. Peace replaces the applause. Detachment is not coldness, it is clarity. You still feel deeply, but you are no longer imprisoned by feeling. Emotion becomes a visitor, not a ruler. The waves still come, but the ocean remains vast and calm. To detach is to become like water, responsive, not reactive. Most people confuse intensity with importance. They chase what burns brightest and ignore what endures longest. Detachment reverses that illusion. You begin to value consistency over excitement, depth over display. The calm man will always outlast the loud one. To detach is to accept impermanence. Everything changes: success, failure, relationships, even identity. When you stop resisting that truth, you move freely through life's transitions. The attached man mourns endings. The detached man evolves through them. Adaptability is the quiet reward of letting go. The world teaches attachment to goals, to opinions, to images. Detachment unlearns it. You start to see that chasing stability through control is futile. True stability comes from inner flexibility. When you detach, you stop trying to build walls against change and start learning to move with it. When you detach from outcome, creativity expands. Fear of failure kills innovation. But when you no longer crave perfection, your work becomes alive. You take risks because you are not tied to results. The detached creator builds without expectation and ironically achieves more. The strongest leaders lead from detachment. They are not swayed by praise or criticism. They stay rooted in principle, not emotion. Because they do not crave agreement, they can make clear decisions. Detachment gives birth to authority, not through dominance, but through calm certainty. Detach from time, and you master patience. Impatience is attachment to pace. It demands the world to move faster, but everything unfolds when it's meant to. The calm warrior waits, not because he's passive, but because he understands rhythm. Detachment makes him timeless. When you detach, failure loses its sting. You stop fearing mistakes because they no longer define you. Every fall becomes a lesson, not a scar. You learn to rise without complaint, to adjust without resentment. The one who learns from defeat without bitterness cannot truly lose. Attachment creates dependence, but detachment builds independence. When you no longer need, you start choosing. Your actions come from freedom, not from fear. Detachment gives you back your authority, the ability to act without waiting for permission from the world. Detachment reveals how little control you actually need. You stop micromanaging fate and start trusting direction. It doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing what's right and allowing life to unfold. Control fades, harmony begins. The more you release, the more everything aligns. The game of life doesn't end when you detach, it transforms. You no longer play for trophies or applause, you play for understanding. The rules stop binding you because you see them for what they are. Illusions of importance. Freedom becomes your prize. When you finally detach, life becomes effortless. You move with precision, speak with intention, and rest without guilt. Nothing owns you, yet everything belongs to you. Detachment doesn't make you distant. It makes you whole. That is when the game truly changes. When you no longer need to win to feel alive. Stillness is not the absence of motion. It is the mastery of it. The surface may rest, but underneath lies infinite depth. In a still mind, every movement becomes deliberate. Every breath carries intention. Power is not found in noise or haste. It is hidden in calm precision. When you are still inside, the chaos outside can find no way in. The world mistakes stillness for weakness. It glorifies speed, noise, and endless action. But movement without direction is chaos wearing purpose as a mask. The strongest warrior moves only when needed and rests with complete awareness. In that balance lies the secret. Energy conserved becomes energy controlled. When you are still, you begin to see what others miss. The impatient eye looks only at motion. The patient one sees rhythm. Stillness sharpens perception. You feel the air shift before a storm. The tone behind a word, the truth behind silence. Awareness is born in stillness. True strength does not shout. It stands calm in front of fear and watches it dissolve. The loud fighter tires quickly because his energy leaks through emotion. The quiet one endures because his power is contained. Stillness is the gatekeeper of endurance. It keeps your energy sacred. A still mind is the foundation of every precise strike. The body cannot move cleanly if the mind trembles. In stillness, timing becomes perfect. Reaction becomes instinct. You act without delay, not because you rush, but because you are ready. Preparedness is born from peace, not panic. The strongest force does not need to prove itself. The ocean is still at its deepest point. Mountains do not roar, yet they command the horizon. Stillness carries an authority that noise can never match. Those who are truly powerful do not seek to be seen. They are felt. Stillness is where wisdom gathers. Every lesson you have learned needs silence to take root. Reflection refines experience into understanding. The mind that never stops moving forgets what it touches, but in stillness the fragments align. Insight arrives like light entering a calm pond. You cannot hold stillness, you must become this. Trying to force calmness is another form of struggle. Let stillness arrive naturally, like breath after exhaustion. When you surrender to it, the world slows down. You see that life was never rushing, only your thoughts were. To be still is not to avoid action, but to remove waste from action. It is not hesitation, it is calculation. The strong do not react to every sound. They choose their moment. A single movement from stillness carries more weight than 1,000 made in haste. Stillness turns emotion into energy. When you sit quietly with anger, it loses its chaos and reveals its source. When you rest with fear, it begins to fade into awareness. Stillness transforms turbulence into clarity. It is the forge where weakness becomes wisdom. In stillness, identity dissolves. You stop being the name, the title, the mask. You become awareness itself. Vast, untouched, infinite. The ego cannot survive in silence because it feeds on comparison. Stillness is its undoing, and your liberation. Every storm teaches stillness. You cannot stop the wind, but you can steady your breath. You cannot calm the waves, but you can anchor your heart. When you remain still amid turmoil, you do not avoid life. You master it. The storm ends itself when it cannot move you. Stillness is a mirror. It reflects the truth exactly as it is. Most people fear it because they fear what they will see, but only in stillness can illusion fall away. When you sit long enough, the masks of fear, pride, and doubt slide off. What remains is the essence, pure, unshakable awareness. A still mind becomes untouchable. Insults lose their sting, praise loses its grip. You stop dancing to other people's rhythms and start hearing your own. The opinions of the world fade into background noise. You walk your path in silence, and that silence speaks louder than applause. Stillness is the pause between thoughts, the breath between movements. It is in that pause that mastery hides. The one who can dwell in that space commands himself. The rest of the world lives in reaction. The still one lives in choice. Energy scattered is weak. Energy centered is unstoppable. When you stop wasting motion on distraction, your strength multiplies. The archer's power lies not in the arrow, but in the stillness before release. so too does your strength reside in the space before action. Stillness is discipline in its purest form. It demands patience, presence, and control. Anyone can move fast. Few can sit quietly. The ability to do nothing yet remain fully aware is the peak of training. The body follows the mind, and the still mind leads flawlessly. In the practice of stillness, you meet truth face to face. You see how fleeting desire is, how unnecessary fear was, how small every argument becomes. Perspective widens when motion ceases. The world loses its grip on you because you no longer chase or resist, you simply see. The strongest force does not break. It absorbs. Water takes the shape of everything it touches, yet remains unchanged. Stillness is that same adaptability. When you master it, you no longer waste time fighting what is. You flow with it and remain whole. Stillness heals. Every wound of the mind needs quiet to close. Noise keeps pain alive. Silence lets it breathe and fade. In stillness, forgiveness grows, not because you forget, but because you finally understand. Healing is not time's job. It is stillness' gift. The path to stillness begins with awareness of movement. Watch the small reactions, the frown, the tension, the impatience. Each is a ripple disturbing your water. As you observe, they weaken. What you see clearly, you no longer become. The practice is simple. Watch, breathe, let be. Stillness gives you control over time. When you are fully present, a single moment expands. You stop living in tomorrow's fear or yesterday's memory. Life unfolds one breath at a time. The still mind experiences eternity in an instant. The world is loud because it fears silence. But noise cannot disturb the one who listens without reacting. The strongest souls sit quietly amid confusion and know exactly who they are. They don't run from noise, they let it pass through them, untouched. When you understand stillness, every movement becomes art. Every step carries weight, every glance, intention. The world becomes slower, more deliberate. You no longer chase rhythm, you create it. The orchestra of life begins to follow your tempo. Stillness is not the end of action, it is the source of it. From silence comes clarity, from clarity comes power, from power comes effortless movement. The one who has mastered stillness does not need to force outcomes, he aligns with them. And that is why stillness, though silent, remains the strongest force of all. The more you chase, the less you see. The act of pursuit narrows your vision, turning clarity into tunnel focus. You begin to run after shadows, mistaking motion for progress. When your eyes are fixed only on what's ahead, you stop seeing what's around. The hunter becomes hunted, trapped by his own desire. True mastery is not in pursuit, but in perception. Chasing creates illusion. It tells you happiness lives in the next moment, the next goal, the next victory. But the next never arrives because chasing makes time endless. You run harder, faster, but never closer. Stillness reveals what running hides, that everything you wanted was already within reach if only you had stopped to see it. The one who chases is ruled by what he seeks. His power belongs to what he cannot grasp. Every step forward strengthens his chains. When you chase success, success controls you. When you chase peace, peace escapes you. But when you stop chasing, life starts coming toward you, quietly, naturally. Chasing is noise in the mind. It screams, "I must have it," and drowns out all wisdom. The calm mind moves differently. It chooses, it flows, it acts, never chases. There is a difference between direction and desperation. Direction is guided by clarity. Desperation is driven by fear. The wise know the difference. When you chase, you lose rhythm. Every creature in nature moves in balance. The cheetah sprints only when the moment is right. But man runs endlessly, chasing approval, recognition, power. Exhaustion replaces purpose. The one who knows when to wait never misses his target. The blind chase leads to imitation. You see someone ahead and copy their stride, their style, their success. But their path is not yours. What fits another may chain you. When you stop chasing, you begin creating. Originality blooms in stillness, not in pursuit. Chasing blinds because it keeps your gaze outward. You forget to look inward where all answers hide. Every time you seek something outside to fix what's inside, you dig the hole deeper. The world is not a finish line, it is a mirror. Stop running and it will start reflecting. The chasing mind is never satisfied. Even when it wins, it instantly asks, what's next? Peace cannot exist where wanting never ends. Contentment is not born from more, it's born from enough. When you stop chasing, gratitude begins to grow, and gratitude is sight restored. A chasing mind cannot hear. It listens only to its own footsteps. Wisdom whispers softly. It speaks between breaths, between thoughts. To hear it, you must be still. The quiet man learns more in one moment of silence than the restless man learns in a lifetime of running. Chasing is attachment disguised as ambition. You tell yourself it's purpose, but it's dependence. You believe you are leading, yet you are being pulled. Detachment breaks that illusion. The goal does not define you, your awareness does. The moment you realize this, the chase ends and true purpose begins. You lose strength when you chase, because chasing drains attention. The more you want, the more scattered you become. Focus is lost to fantasy. The warrior who moves from patience carries more power than the one who sprints from hunger. Power is not built by motion, but by mastery of intention. In chasing, you forget direction. The faster you move, the less you question where you're going. You start running simply because everyone else is. The crowd runs toward noise, never toward truth. When you walk your path with awareness, you may be slower, but you never lose yourself. The one who chases recognition becomes blind to self-worth. Every compliment becomes food, every silence feels like hunger. But when you no longer seek applause, you begin to hear the rhythm of your own heart. That rhythm is steady, grounded, free from manipulation. Chasing blinds because it makes you think you're behind. You start comparing your journey to others. You count steps instead of lessons. The truth is, there is no race, only rhythm. The one who moves with awareness is never late, because he is exactly where he must be. A man in chase forgets the value of pause. He treats stillness as delay instead of discovery. Yet it's in those pauses that understanding arrives. The arrow must be drawn back before it can fly forward. Without the still moment, there is no precision, only motion without meaning. When you chase happiness, you destroy it. Happiness cannot be hunted. It appears when you stop running long enough to feel. It lives in the moment, not in the memory or the dream. The blind chase for joy is what keeps most from ever tasting it. The eyes of the chasing man are always far ahead. He doesn't see the people beside him, the beauty around him, the lessons beneath him. He looks through life instead of into it. Vision returns only when the running stops. Then what was ordinary becomes profound. Chasing makes you desperate for control. You want the world to obey your pace. But the world has its own rhythm. It doesn't bend to force, only to flow. The one who releases control finds alignment. And in alignment, everything arrives without struggle. In chasing, pride often hides. You chase not because you need, but because you fear being seen as still. The ego equates stillness with weakness, yet only the strong can stand motionless amid movement. Detach from the image of the winner, and you become unstoppable. Chasing blinds you to the lesson hidden in loss. You rush to replace what's gone instead of understanding why it left. Pain is not punishment. It is instruction. The still mind learns. The chasing mind escapes. Growth belongs to the one who stays and sees. The more you chase, the more you push what you want away. Energy of desperation repels what peace attracts. When you let go, things naturally return, not because you forced them, but because you became open to receive. Stillness magnetizes what chasing repels. Chasing blinds because it makes you impatient. You stop trusting time, you try to harvest before the seed is ready. But nature moves in patience. The tree does not chase sunlight, it grows toward it. If you do the same, success becomes inevitable. When you chase, you forget presence. You live in the future, a place that never arrives. Stillness roots you in now. Every moment you are truly here, life expands. You stop running through it and start living within it. That is the difference between motion and awareness. Chasing ends when you realize there was never anything to catch. The mind's hunger creates the illusion of distance. What you seek is not in front of you, it is within you, waiting for you to stop long enough to notice. Vision returns the moment the chase stops. When you stop chasing, sight becomes insight. You begin to see clearly, not just with eyes, but with being. The game changes entirely. You no longer run toward peace, you radiate it. You no longer chase light, you become it. And when that happens, blindness ends forever. The one who wants nothing cannot be stopped. Desire ties you to outcome, and outcome becomes your master. When you remove want, movement becomes effortless. You begin to glide through resistance, instead of clashing with it. The world cannot control a mind that expects nothing, because nothing can be taken from it. Freedom starts where wanting ends. To want nothing is not apathy, it is awareness. It means seeing clearly without distortion. When you want, you see through the lens of hope and fear. But when the lens is clean, you see truth as it is. You move through life without clinging or avoiding. You act with full heart, but without attachment to result. Most people move as slaves to what they want. They run toward comfort and away from pain, never realizing both chains are made of the same metal. The mind that wants nothing walks free between them. It does not seek, it experiences. It learns from everything, attached to nothing. When you want nothing, you stop negotiating with life. You no longer bargain for peace, love, or respect. You give these freely because they are already yours. What you offer without expectation multiplies, but what you demand diminishes. Detachment becomes your power, not your punishment. A man who wants nothing is not defeated by loss. He can lose fortune, position, or recognition, yet remain complete. His value no longer comes from possession, but from presence. Stillness becomes his home. What others call emptiness, he calls clarity. One blinds, stillness reveals. The moment you want, you narrow your focus to a single path. You stop noticing the many ways life opens before you. Let go of wanting, and the entire field of possibility returns. The one who wants nothing sees everything. The secret is not to avoid desire, but to dissolve its control. Feel it, understand it, and let it pass. You don't need to chase what arises naturally. When your actions come from awareness, not craving, your path unfolds like water flowing down a mountain, without resistance, without pause. When you move with no want, you move like wind, unseen, unstoppable. You adjust to obstacles without fear. You become fluid, not fixed. Others tire from pushing. You conserve energy through alignment. The power of effortlessness belongs to the one who no longer competes with what is. The world belongs to those who no longer cling to it. Possession creates fear, and fear breeds control. But the man who owns nothing cannot be threatened. He does not cling to identity or expectation. He walks through chaos untouched, because his peace is internal, not conditional. Wanting divides the mind. It places you here and what you desire there. In that distance, tension is born. The quiet mind removes that distance. It becomes whole, present, and unfragmented. Wholeness is strength. You cannot be broken when you no longer chase pieces. To move through everything, stop labeling everything. Good, bad, success, failure. These are illusions of judgment. When you move beyond them, you experience life without distortion. You learn from both pain and joy. You begin to see that nothing is against you. Everything trains you. The one who wants nothing no longer resists change. He understands that everything flows, gain and loss, light and dark. What comes is meant to, what leaves is teaching. He walks calmly through fire because he knows fire purifies. Stillness amid change becomes his greatest weapon. When you drop want, you stop fearing endings. You accept that everything borrowed from time must return to it. Peace lives in that acceptance. You stop clinging to people, moments, or things. What remains is love without fear, motion without grasping. You cannot truly move if you are afraid to lose your footing. One creates hesitation. You weigh, you second guess, you cling. The one who wants nothing steps forward freely. He trusts movement more than outcome. His steps are light because his heart carries nothing heavy. To move through everything, you must first learn to see yourself clearly. Most people are trapped, not by the world, but by their desires. They chase approval, control, perfection. When you release these illusions, the door opens. You realize you were never in a cage. The lock was your own want. Wanting makes you rigid. You plan too much, prepare too long, fear too deeply. Letting go brings flexibility. Life moves fast, and the one who can bend will not break. Like bamboo in the storm, you survive not by force, but by yielding. To want nothing is to act without fear. You don't calculate your worth by success or failure. You express freely because the act itself is enough. The artist who paints without craving praise creates truth. The warrior who fights without fear of loss finds precision. When you want nothing, the noise of the world fades. Temptation loses color. Manipulation loses grip. You are no longer pulled by promises or threats. Silence becomes strength. The man who can stand alone untouched by reward or punishment is the rarest kind of powerful. Wanting makes the present invisible. You see only the next, but life is lived here, in this breath, this moment. When you stop wanting, time opens. You finally experience the richness you are running past. Contentment is not stagnation. It is seeing fully. The path of no want is not empty. It is alive. You move without the burden of expectation, so every encounter becomes new. Every step becomes discovery. You do not fear repetition because awareness makes everything fresh. This is true vitality, constant renewal through presence. When you want nothing, you stop taking things personally. The world no longer defines you. Insults pass like wind, praise like rain. You are touched by both but owned by neither. Detachment is not coldness. It is freedom from emotional slavery. You cannot hold the river. You can only flow with it. Wanting is the attempt to grip water. The tighter you grasp, the more you lose. Letting go doesn't mean losing direction. It means trusting movement. You are carried, not dragged by the current of life. The man who wants nothing walks lightly. His eyes are clear, his mind uncluttered. He learns faster because he listens deeper. He fights cleaner because he fears less. The fewer attachments he carries, the sharper his perception becomes. Simplicity is his advantage. When you want nothing, you become untouchable. The world cannot buy or break you. You no longer react to reward or rejection. You act because it is right, not because it is recognized. Integrity replaces ambition. That is how freedom looks, silent, steady, unstoppable. And when you reach that state, wanting nothing, fearing nothing, you do not escape the world, you move through it with grace. Obstacles become paths. Endings become beginnings. Life no longer tests you, it flows through you. You have become the current, not the swimmer. That is true mastery, to want nothing, and yet move through everything. Emptiness is not a void, it is a space of limitless potential. When the cup is full, nothing more can enter. But when it is empty, it can hold the universe. The mind that releases clutter, fear, pride, possession, becomes boundless. In emptiness, you discover that stillness is not absence, but readiness. The quiet space within you is the source of creation itself. People fear emptiness because they misunderstand it. They think to be empty is to lose meaning, when in truth, emptiness is freedom from illusion. The crowded mind cannot see clearly, but emptiness is clarity itself. Transparent, formless, aware. When you embrace nothingness, you become open to everything. Every form is born from emptiness. Look at the ocean. Its vast stillness gives birth to every wave. The same is true within you. The more still and spacious your mind becomes, the more creative power flows through it. Emptiness is the soil in which every new possibility grows. When the mind is full, it resists learning. It argues, defends, clings. It absorbs like air. That is why a beginner learns faster than a master who believes he already knows. To remain empty is to remain teachable. To remain teachable is to remain alive. Emptiness is the art of letting go without loss. You do not throw away, you release. You create space so new things can breathe. The man who clings to everything he has built leaves no room for what he could become. The power of emptiness is transformation through release. A cluttered mind is heavy. An empty one moves like wind. It cannot be caught, cornered, or controlled. This is why emptiness is feared by the world. It cannot be bought or defeated. It has no edges, no boundaries, no weakness to exploit. When you are empty, ego dissolves. You no longer need to defend a self that was never truly fixed. You flow from one moment to the next without resistance. You can adapt because you are not defined by position. Identity becomes movement, not a mask. In emptiness, action becomes pure. You stop performing for approval and start expressing truth. There is no tension between who you are and what you do. When the mind is empty of motive, every gesture becomes art. Simplicity becomes power. Emptiness is not nothing, it is potential unformed. From it, strength arises without struggle. The calm mind creates faster than the frantic one. Like the pause between breaths, emptiness is the point where life renews itself. It is the reset that gives movement meaning. When you sit in silence long enough, you begin to feel the vastness inside you. It is not lonely, it is complete. You realize you do not lack anything. You simply needed to stop filling yourself with noise. That quiet space is peace itself. Not something to chase, but something to remember. The emptiness within you cannot be destroyed. It existed before thought, before name, before identity. It is the canvas that life paints upon. The wise protect that space. They do not rush to fill it, because they understand that it is the source of insight. To remain empty is to remain unattached. The world can offer you gold or insult you with dust. Neither changes your state. You move with both and remain whole. That is real power, when no circumstance has authority over your calm. The mind that fears emptiness clings to things. It fills itself with distraction, emotion, noise, anything to avoid silence. But every layer of noise adds confusion. Only when you strip away everything false does truth appear. The more you let go, the more you see. In emptiness, you meet reality as it is. There is no filter, no wish, no distortion. You stop wanting things to be different. You see the beauty of what already exists. Acceptance blooms effortlessly when the mind is empty of resistance. True strength lies not in holding, but in releasing. The clenched fist cannot receive, but the open hand can hold the world. Emptiness is that open hand, the gesture of trust in life. When you trust, you stop forcing. And when you stop forcing, everything aligns. Emptiness gives birth to patience. because you are not waiting for something to fill you. You move without haste. You can sit in stillness and allow time to reveal what force never could. The impatient mind breaks. The empty mind endures. The more empty you are, the more energy flows through you. A river moves because it is not blocked, so too does power move through an open heart and mind. Emptiness channels life itself. You do not create force, you allow it to move through you unhindered. Emptiness makes you fearless. What can the world take from one who holds nothing too tightly? Fear is attachment in disguise. The fear of losing what you think defines you. But when you are empty, you lose nothing because you carry nothing but awareness. To know emptiness is to know peace beyond understanding. You no longer ask life for guarantees. You no longer resist endings. You understand that beginnings and endings are the same. One breath, one flow, one motion returning to stillness. Emptiness teaches humility. The more you know, the more you realize how much remains unseen. The empty vessel invites wisdom because it is not proud. The full vessel spills. The empty one receives endlessly. Humility is strength that does not need to shout. When you embrace emptiness, you stop pretending to be in control. You recognize that life moves through you, not because of you. This surrender is not defeat. It is unity. The drop becomes the ocean when it forgets it was ever separate. Emptiness removes comparison. You stop measuring yourself against others. You realize that everyone is walking the same path in different forms. The race ends and awareness begins. In that realization, compassion naturally awakens. The more you understand emptiness, the more effortless your life becomes. You move through situations without resistance. You give your best, but expect nothing. What leaves, leaves. What stays, stays. Peace does not depend on either. When you practice emptiness, you rediscover wonder. You see the small as sacred, the quiet as profound. Life regains color because you have cleared the lens. You stop searching for miracles and start seeing that existence itself is one. And when you become completely empty, you realize you were never lacking, only layered. Each layer you peel away brings you closer to the core of life itself. Emptiness is not the end of being. It is the beginning of everything. In that silence, infinite power resides, unseen, unforced, eternal. Freedom is not something you earn, it is something you remember. You were born free, but the world taught you to trade your presence for approval, your peace for progress. True freedom begins when you stop selling your attention to things that do not nourish your soul. Presence is the only wealth that cannot be taken. People think freedom is found in escape, leaving jobs, cities, or relationships. But running is not freedom, it's movement without direction. You cannot flee what is inside you. Wherever you go, your mind follows. Only when you face it fully, in the now, does real liberation begin. The mind that is present is unchained. It does not live in memory or expectation. It doesn't replay what was said or anticipate what might come. It rests in what is alive, alert, still. That is freedom to exist without the weight of yesterday or the hunger for tomorrow. Freedom cannot be bought because it is not a possession. It cannot be given because it was never missing. You lose it only when you forget to be here. The price of distraction is captivity. The reward of awareness is peace. Nothing else is required. Presence is the only place life happens. Yet most people live everywhere else, in thoughts, in worries, in comparisons. They mistake activity for aliveness. But true living happens in the pauses, in the breath, in the quiet realization that nothing is missing in this moment. To be free, you must stop bargaining with time. The future is a mirage that vanishes when you reach for it. The past is a shadow that loses shape when you face it. Freedom lives in the center, in the still point where awareness meets breath. That is where eternity hides. Freedom is not the absence of responsibility, it is the absence of attachment. You can work, love, and create deeply, yet remain untouched by outcome. When you are fully present, nothing owns you. The work becomes art. The moment becomes meditation. Presence strips away the masks that the world builds on you. When you are truly here, there is no need to perform. You no longer act from identity, you act from awareness. In that space, honesty replaces effort. Simplicity becomes elegance. Freedom begins when the mind stops arguing with reality. Wanting the moment to be different is the root of suffering. Accepting it doesn't mean surrendering to pain. It means aligning with truth. Resistance builds walls. Presence opens doors. The free man listens more than he speaks. He does not rush to defend or prove. He knows that silence is not weakness but wisdom. When you are fully present, words lose the need to dominate. Understanding flows naturally without argument. Freedom is found in the smallest acts: drinking tea without distraction, walking without hurry, breathing without intention. These moments look ordinary, yet they are sacred. They remind you that peace was never complicated, it was just ignored. To be present is to meet life without armor. You stop fighting every emotion, every situation. You let joy come. You let sadness visit. Freedom cannot coexist with control. The need to dominate others or outcomes is born from fear. When you let go of control, trust takes its place. You learn that life doesn't need to obey you to serve you. Presence allows harmony to replace effort. A present mind has no enemies. It doesn't hold grudges or rewrite stories. It sees every person as a reflection of itself. Some teaching peace, others patience. When you live this way, even conflict becomes a teacher, not a cage. Freedom is not loud. It is subtle. It does not scream, "I am free." It whispers through calm eyes and relaxed breath. You feel it in the way you stand, the way you respond. It's a quiet power that grows when the noise of want fades. The free soul no longer measures time by achievements. Success becomes the ability to stay centered. Failure becomes another lesson in awareness. You realize that every situation is training for presence. Even pain becomes useful when met consciously. To find freedom, stop searching for it. Every search assumes it's somewhere else. Sit still, feel the breath move in and out. That moment, unchased, unjudged, is freedom. You were never lost. You were only distracted. Freedom cannot be borrowed from philosophies or gurus. It must be lived, not learned. The truth can only enter a quiet mind, and quietness comes from direct experience. Each breath becomes a teacher. Each pause a reminder you are already free. Presence removes the illusion of possession. You cannot own what is always changing. You can only experience it. The present moment is not a thing to keep. It is something to meet again and again. Each time you return, you find that peace never left. Freedom has no direction because it is everywhere. The more you chase it, the further it runs. When you stop moving, it finds you. Presence is not pursuit. It is discovery. The still mind realizes it has been standing at the finish line all along. When you are present, fear loses grip. Fear lives in what might happen, never in what is. Look deeply into this moment. There is no threat, only sensation. Fear dissolves under awareness because awareness sees truth without story. Freedom is invisible, yet unmistakable. You feel it in how you breathe, how you listen, how you wait. It is the soft confidence of a person who needs nothing to validate their existence. Presence is not about power. It is about peace that cannot be disturbed. The greatest chains are internal. Belief, expectation, identity. The moment you see through them, they fall away. presence cuts through illusion with quiet precision. What remains is simplicity, the pure awareness that nothing has ever been missing. To live free is to treat every breath as a miracle. You begin to notice the rhythm of life moving through you, not around you. The sound of wind, the warmth of light, the stillness of silence, all become reminders of your wholeness. And when you finally understand this, you stop searching for freedom anywhere else. You stand in the now, unbound by thought, unshaken by outcome. In that stillness, you see the truth. Freedom was never a destination. It was your presence all along. The moment your mind stops chasing, it finally starts seeing. You begin to understand that peace was never something to find, it was something to allow. When you release your grip on desire, life opens its hands to you, not as a battle, but as balance. The world cannot control a person who no longer needs to control it. When you stop trying to win, you begin to move with truth. You become effortless, unshaken, and free from every chain built by wanting. Let go of the noise inside. Let the silence guide you back to yourself. No expectations, no attachments, only awareness. In that space, nothing can hurt you and nothing can hold you. Because freedom isn't set about getting more, it's about needing less. Or nothing, and you will finally have everything that matters.